Meeting for March 20th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Bhatia.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Washburn.
Here.
Driver.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Poznowski.
Here.
And Van Beckham is excused.
Right. Let's go to the approval of the Plan Commission meeting minutes from February 21st, 2024. Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussions?
I'd like to be marked as abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay, so done. We'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next will be ordinance 03-2024 USH 41S zoning map amendment ZMA 24-1.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'm actually going to read the executive summary for this and the next one since they're basically the same application co-related. And that's how it was in your packet as well. The applicant applied on behalf of the owner to amend the zoning map for the property from C3 to C4 to accommodate a 22,500 square foot building containing commercial vehicle repair, maintenance, and truck stop uses. The village requires a conditional use for alterations of the parking space layout requirements to accommodate on-site large vehicles and semi-truck, tractor, truck, and trailer parking per section 90-420.100L. The owner is Truck City, Inc., and the applicant is Richard Bierman of RB Custom Designs, Inc. The draft plans included within the application meet the lot, principal building siting, principal building design, accessory building siting, and building height requirements of the C4 zoning district. The application is a draft only, and the applicant must apply for site plan review before the village issues any building permits. So this conditional use does not constitute site plan review. You're approving the use specifically. They would have to come back for that site plan review. The C4 zoning district allows both commercial vehicle repair and maintenance and truck stop uses by right. The village staff qualified this as a truck stop use because the draft floor plans include a driver's lounge and shower facilities in the bathrooms. As a specific note, they would, if it did not have the truck stop use, they would not need the C4 rezone. So take that in mind when you're considering your recommendation today, that the C3 zoning district allows commercial vehicle sales and repair, but not truck stop use. So while we'll get to that point, but like your recommendation is keep that nuance in mind. The village requires a conditional use for large vehicle and semi-tractor, truck, and trailer parking facilities. The conditions for that conditional use are as follows. Number one, each tractor trailer space shall count in Division 90-430 landscaping and screening as a directly proportional number of standard spaces rounded to the nearest next whole space. This does not apply to active loading areas in approved building or at fueling stations at a truck stop. Number two, the approved non-accessory large vehicle and semi-tractor, truck, and trailer parking use must have a taxable primary structure on the property that meets a 10% lot coverage ratio. Number three, the village shall not approve new non-accessory large vehicle and semi-tractor, truck, and trailer parking uses within a tax incremental district. The trailer parking spaces depicted 472, the trailer parking spaces depicted equal, I should have missed that word there, 472 standard spaces when you do the math. The submitted landscaping calculations, which I passed out just before the meeting, do not fully incorporate the number of interior parking lot landscaping requirements. However, there is a note on the bottom that they intend to apply for alternative compliance using some of the green infrastructure requirements, where we'll lessen landscaping requirements if you come in with like bioswales or permeable pavers or things like that. Those aren't depicted on the plan, so the landscaping note should still exist in any condition for approval. However, kind of a late addition, I wanted to pass out that all of the vehicular use area screening requirements are now met via those plans. So it's really the interior parking lot landscaping that's hanging out there. And that is a condition we'll get to. The administration procedures, this is both a zoning map amendment and a conditional use. As the fiscal note we included above, it has a revenue to cost ratio of 5.13 to 1 and a private to public ratio of 20.48 to 1. It's important to note that this lies along the frontage road, so those are estimates as if they were local roads, but we don't actually maintain or pay for the east frontage road. But in terms of a total analysis, I think a good take-home point is that conditional use condition for 10% lot coverage minimum of building area actually required that the applicant increase the building size from their original proposal they showed to staff by about 7,000 square feet. So it went from about 18,000 square feet to about 25,000 square feet. That's almost a fourth of the building, right? So, that's translate to a pretty significant amount of taxable value. The land market value is also $1.3 million. So another point that I think it's worth considering is this property's been out there a long time before it sold and had a friendly character of a landowner, I will say. And so, this is not something that we've ever received an application before or really interest in. This is the first time someone's taken a crack at this property, which I think, kind of should be of note. Overall, it doesn't hit our minimum of $1 million per acre. Not entirely surprising based on, its heavy truck use, but it gets to about $800,000 an acre. So for this example, I think it's actually performing pretty well for this type of use compared to what would have been in the original submission or what you might see in a different community. So we're pretty happy with how those conditions are playing out for this type of use right now.
Well, and particularly, Sam, because it is on the frontage road and we're not gonna have to repave that, that value goes further.
Exactly.
You
Yeah, so it's, it's performing pretty well from our estimates. For additional considerations, the staff believe that the truck stop, non-accessory parking, and commercial vehicle repair and maintenance use definitions are all intertwined. So we're going to recommend a zoning text amendment to consolidate the commercial vehicle use regulations while still keeping those strict landscaping, building size, and site location requirements in there. The fact that this user needs to apply for a conditional use is working as intended, I think. The fact that they need to rezone for a use that wouldn't be dissimilar if they didn't need to rezone, except the fact that they're like shower facilities inside their building is not really that different. So I think, we're going to come back and try to consolidate and clean up some of those use regulations for you all. It doesn't really affect this application, just something we wanted to call out to make this kind of cleaner and easier to administer.
There is a consideration too that before the B districts changed to the C districts, that this was in a B4 zone, which did allow for truck stops and whatnot, but then got shifted into the C4 zone, C3 zone. Sorry, that along with B3 and B4 merged, and the truck stop use was the one that was sort of not included in that merge and moved up to the C4 standard. I need to rephrase that.
Now
TLDR,
we're
they
really
used to have this ability in their zone, but our adjustment of the zoning and definitions in late October kind of changed that. So it was zoned appropriately as of 6 months ago.
Yeah,
but
when they bought the property, it was actually zoned appropriately. So we kind of changed it on them, which I think is also an important consideration.
But the conditional use stuff and all of that has been us following y'all's instructions that we want to kind of make it tough on these type of uses and make sure it's a good use. It ends up being a good use of property. So this is a good test to see whether those ordinances are working in you all's eyes.
With that, the village staff recommends the conditions contained within the endnotes. Those are: 1, the applicant must apply for site plan review before the village issues any building permits. It's more of a reminder. And then number 2, the applicant shall revise the landscaping plan to show the proper calcs and landscaping per vehicular use area screening and interior parking lot landscaping. So you could actually remove the vehicular use area screening requirement from that second condition if you want. It's a good catch-all, but the plans that you just saw in front of you that I handed out 10 minutes ago look like they're fine. So,
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
yeah. But other than that, it's happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, real quick, you ran through it real, regards to putting fuel pumps in that C4 is allowable then, if they want to at some point in time?
It would be, yes.
And it's not now then?
Correct.
Okay.
For trucks, it would be for personal vehicles. So it doesn't prohibit gas stations entirely, it just prohibits gas stations for trucks.
Wait a minute, I don't quite understand.
Like we in the ordinances differentiate between truck fueling stations and personal vehicle fueling stations. So the way it's zoned now, a Quick Trip or any other gas station could open on that site by right. It's just you couldn't have truck fueling stations as a part of it. The zoning change would allow those truck fueling stations.
Yeah, and truck fueling stations are much bigger.
But they could do both. They could do cars and trucks on a
Under
C4.
the zoning change, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If they want to put pumps in, do they have to come back?
It depends on the size and scale of the amendment to their site plan, but more likely than not, yes, because you're not, the cutoff is 5,000 square feet for a site plan amendment to kick it to Plan Commission, and any fueling station of that size would probably be over that threshold.
So may I ask, Chairman, may I ask to Sam, so the impression I get from this is it is a retail environment. In other words, what are their hours of operation? In other words, is it, Pilot has restaurants in it, they have tanker truck fueling operations as well as personal vehicle fueling operations. This has none of that. But is this like a retail, is it open 24/7? Is it for trucks, why do they need the showers? Or is it truckers coming in, their vehicle has to get repaired overnight and they're,
Honestly,
does that matter?
I don't know if you have an answer, Robin.
Yeah,
It doesn't really matter
Okay,
in
I'm
our
just
zoning
curious,
review, but
obviously.
Robin.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but it's basically kind of like a fleet home base for a trucking company. So they send out trucks to do, deliveries and all that sort of stuff. And they are like the freight company. And this is their home base where they report back, put up the truck, hang out for their breaks, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like the general public will be going in, but that's what it was described to me by the applicant.
Yeah, so kind of this pseudo, it's really light on the truck stop use. I mean, if they didn't provide floor plans, we probably wouldn't have even caught it. I mean, they've been open and honest with us. They've not been trying to hide it, but it's right on the edge, which is why we wanted to call out that staff consideration that, like, from the public's point of view, really doesn't make a bit of difference either way, but it matters for our zoning. And when we see those discrepancies, it's kind of like, hey, we should think about how some of this stuff is being administered on the back end through zoning text amendments. But for their all intents and purposes right now, zoning change in the conditional use is required.
I'm just glad we are holding on to and holding them to the high level of landscaping, because that is a view corridor coming into the village right up on 94 at Highway 20. So I appreciate them coming in and wanting to be in our community, but I'm glad we're still going to have a fairly decent screen for it and so forth.
Yeah, I think the closest comp, at least east of the interstate, is there's like that master fleet kind of facility up in Caledonia by K. This would probably have 5 times the amount of landscaping surrounding the site, I would say, due to our vehicular use area screening requirements, which we qualify from both the interstate side as a public street and the frontage road side.
Glad to see
There are also, we didn't talk about them in here because they met the requirements, but there are, under the new commercial zoning standards, minimum transparency requirements. So they did update the architectural plans already. And so there will be, facing the interstate and facing the frontage road, there's windows on the first story and the upper story. So that kind of gives a little bit of transparency to the use. Inside, it'll appear a little bit more active and stuff from the site. So, there's a balance, right? In all of these uses, the people who are most willing to pay to be out near the interstate are vehicular uses like this, right? They're going to pay a premium to be out as close to an interstate exit as possible. So I think This is a really good example of where our architecture standards that are relatively new, but our landscaping standards and our screening standards are kind of working as intended to make these less pretty uses a little bit more palatable to the general public.
I appreciate that attention to detail a lot. I think that it's really important, so thank you, Sam.
Yeah, as an additional note, sometimes the rezone is also y'all's and the village board's area that they have the most discretion in, as far as, what they see as the future of, that particular site. Conditional uses are, somewhat up to y'all's interpretation of whether or not they meet those conditions.
Yeah, I don't think at a board level, we've really.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you. Had those kind of, as the projects come in, those individual discussions of,
Yeah.
What do we want to see? Is this it? Is this not it? We know what the interests are along the eye.
Yeah, I mean, this has a occupied warehousing facility just east across, and then north, there's the hotel, and then motel, and then north of that, there's a Quick Trip. So, and then south, you can see on the map in front of you, there is technically a parcel there, but it's mostly wetlands, so it's nigh undevelopable unless someone pays a lot of money to the DNR to permit to fill those. So, we certainly give these a once-over from a use perspective when they come in, and, kind of give our general thoughts to potential applicants. But this one is surrounded by pretty similar uses out there, so it's not like it's the only facility operating in the middle of a residential neighborhood or something. We're a little bit less skeptical of the use due to its neighbors.
And just to confirm, this is not in a TIF.
It is in a TIF. It is.
Doesn't one of your comments speak to that?
Yeah, because it's the truck stop use is in relation to like the fleet home base thing. That non-accessory truck parking is like a truck, like the truck lot that went up further on the frontage road. That is only just like truck parking with no use kind of thing. Like it's not just a truck parking lot, it's a truck parking lot in relation to a building with a use attached to it. So that's where we
Fleet
drew that
use,
distinction.
meaning the fleet use.
Exactly. Yep.
So that does make it allowable.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, that's where some of these use definitions are getting a little intertwined, I think, for my comfort level. So we could probably straighten them out a little bit to make them more clear for us and for you.
Okay.
I know we're not going to review that until site plan comes in, but I can assume this is going to be completely asphalt?
Yes, it'll have to be either asphalt or concrete. We require a dust-free surface.
Okay, thank you.
Or if they have some other creative option that they want to pitch Tony, someone can always try, but yeah, asphalt or concrete.
Any other questions on this then?
No, interesting.
Do you want us to vote on this, or do you want to read the next one as well?
Yeah, recommendation votes on both. You can take them together or separately. Doesn't matter to me, as long as you name all of it in there. I believe the recommendation we wrote in the executive summary was for both together.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. Move to recommend approval of ordinance 03-2024 USH Highway 41 South zoning map amendment ZMA 24-1 and USH 41 South conditional use CU 24-1, subject to the recommended conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And next we will go to 7111 Washington Avenue Certified Survey Map CSM 24-1.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the applicant applied to create two parcels at the corner of Washington Avenue and Oaks Road. The application follows the land use element of the comp plan. The bike plan recommends bicycle improvements along Oaks Road connecting to the Pike River pathway, which mostly exist. And the Parks and Open Space Plan recommends protecting environmental corridors contained within the subject property. Those are on the east side, like the very northeast corner, that are undeveloped and would not be affected as part of this. In terms of the subdivision regs, we have the statutory authority to review this. The application meets the general provisions, land division procedures, CSM procedures, design standards, required improvements, construction fees, and definitions. The only issue we have with the CSM is that the C3 zoning district has a minimum side setback of 20 feet. The previous B3 zoning classification allowed a 0-foot lot line setback in the case of shared walls. So under the former zoning, this actually would have been allowed. Under the current zoning, it is not. We think that was an oversight. That type of 0 lot line shared wall setback is common in other commercial areas in the village. For example, the Festival Foods Kohl's Shopping Center situation has multiple tax parcels within that connected strip of buildings there. We recommend that the Plan Commission table this application subject to a zoning text amendment re-allowing a 0-foot lot line setback in commercial district, subject to the previous shared wall provision. Alternatively, the applicant could apply for a zoning variance, but that process contains stricter quasi-judicial standards at the Plan Commission and than the Plan Commission and Village Board's legislative authority. The village staff do not believe this land division will change the assessed value of the property. Any remodeling or change in use may affect the assessed value. The applicant was looking at converting a portion of the hotel potentially to housing. Therefore, that's kind of why they're looking to split the building to maintain a commercial front and a housing back, but that wouldn't be, those plans would require separate review. The village staff don't have any recommended conditions for approval, and we recommend tabling this, subject to that zoning text amendment.
That really was my question when we saw this in the packet. So from the lines that are drawn, it appears they're separating that line, that 0 line that is separating the actual hotel space from the banquet facilities and the
Restaurant space and things like that.
Yeah, that's the main desire. I've spoken with the applicant on a couple of different occasions. They initially wanted to did this proposal to kind of redevelop the hotel area into residential, like apartments or something. But I've been since informed that that is not. They have a contract with Marriott that they're not going to allow that. So they're also looking for alternative uses to redevelop the convention area, which is not doing very well, so they tell me. Yeah, they're just looking for ways to spice it up and get new revenue out of the property. Where it goes from there, I don't know.
I mean, any kind of residential change the hotel is in essence a temporary residence, but it's not, it's a commercial, it's a business district and a business use. So
Yeah.
if they were to want to make any kind of dramatic changes in use like that, we would definitely have to see that, right? I mean,
It depends. In the commercial zoning district, we do allow upper story residential in the C3 zoning district, so it depends on how they rehabbed that building. So if they kept a commercial use on the first floor and only, did the hotel space above and turned that into residential, that would be allowable under the current zoning district. But if they did a full-scale remodel and had residential uses on the first floor, then it would require a zoning change.
This is actually a very weird parcel in the fact that the master plan is split and the front is commercial and the back is residential. That is not very common. And it actually covers these exact areas. What staff is just basically going to consider it mixed use for the parcel.
oh, okay.
But yeah, there's ways there.
Yeah. So.
And conversion of hotel space into that has been done in other areas before, especially if the hotel bills for renovation are so high as to kind of push them into that direction.
Yeah.
I wish them the best. It's, that hotel's been here for a long time and served a lot of people, and we still need them. So I think it's a tough location next to the high school. You see the kids walking all over, and, I feel kind of bad for them. It's hard to that's kind of a tough situation there, but if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to lay this over until such time as the zoning map amendment, or the zoning amendment is made and completed.
Second?
I'm just wondering, I've never heard of residential, you know, the apartments next to a hotel or attached to a hotel. I'm just wondering, how can they even coexist? I mean, isn't that kind of like,
Well, why couldn't they? I mean, if it meets building code and the zoning regs, I mean,
Because of
there's
the-
nothing stopping them from doing
what
it.
what apartments bring as far as noise and, you know,
Happens
everything else versus the
all the time, from your old-timey New York hotels to as, you know, close as Milwaukee. I mean, there are people who live in like the Astor up in Milwaukee and rent apartments out of it. It's actually, I would say that it is historically common in old hotels to have residential uses contained within them. It's only in probably the last 50 years that we've gotten away from doing that. So,
Well, it's come back in the form of Airbnbs that pop up inside, large residential buildings. But yeah, and the thing that we were saying, that they weren't planning on kind of piecemealing it. They were actually not very enthused by having to have the bottom floor commercial, because that would take away potential room space. So, yeah, I don't think they're gonna, if they do a conversion, they don't plan on keeping any of the hotel rooms. But that's moot because Marriott put the foot down.
it will be interesting in the long run, because if there is a separation of uses now or in the future, I think on the building code side, firewall ratings between different classifications of uses becomes more important if one becomes permanent residential versus like temporary stuff. So, they'll have a lot of fire and building code issues, I think will be the highest hill to climb in any conversion application that they'll have to go through, so.
And what we're looking at today is just the certified survey.
Just the
map.
CSM, which
So,
technically
all
we
those-
can't even
That
approve.
conjecture will come at another, will be answered as time goes on by them.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is 3351 Chicory Road Site Plan Review, SP 24-5.
Mr. Chair. The applicant applied for site plan review on behalf of Evergreen Academy. They wish to construct a third and final phase of Evergreen Academy, which includes a wing for the middle school, a cafeteria, and a full gymnasium. The plans also include a revised drop-off area and expanded rear parking area. The application follows the land use element of the comp plan. The bike plan shows the existing county bicycle trail on the east side of the property, which does exist. It also recommends a bicycle facility on Chicory Road, which does not exist. Chicory Road in this stretch is governed by the city of Racine. A Parks and Open Space Plan for the village does not recommend protecting any open spaces or reserving any park spaces within the property. For base districts, the lot width, building setback, and building height regs of the most restrictive abutting zoning district apply to P1 zoned lots. This is on public. And the most restrictive abutting zoning district is AG2, which is ag. This application meets all of those, height, setback requirements. In terms of architectural standards, the addition does not meet the minimum roof pitch nor the parapet height regs. The applicant applied for a zoning variance to seek relief from those regulations, which is up later tonight. So that's the first condition. The landscaping plans do not include the interior parking lot landscaping calcs, so that's our second condition. From a fiscal impact standpoint, they have a revenue to cost ratio of 5.5 to 1, private to public ratio of 22.14 to 1, estimated taxable value per acre of about just under $300,000 an acre, and the total estimated taxable value when it's all complete is about $8.5 million. In large part, those numbers are so low because the property is so large. You can see on there's a pretty significant amount of wetlands. There's also some environmental concerns due to, this was an old dumping site as you get further south on the property, and it's hard to access. So, they kind of get unfair shake in the fiscal analysis due to the size of the property. But in large part, it's, they're adding taxable value to what's existing there, so they're going in the right direction at least. The village staff recommend the conditions listed within the endnotes. Those are: 1, the applicant shall update the architectural elevations to show a symmetrical roof pitch of no less than 512 or provide a 36-inch around flat roofs if the Board of Appeals does not grant the zoning variance unfortunately applied. And number 2, the applicant shall update the landscaping plans to bring the entire parking area, including the parking area from previous phases, into compliance with landscaping and screening ordinance of 90-430.40 interior parking lot landscaping. The landscaping plan shall include all calculations used to design the landscaping. One final note that we wanted to make on this application, we should have included under additional staff considerations, but I forgot to add it, is that this is the second multi-part variance application we've gotten from our recent architectural standards. A little bit understandable because a lot of these buildings, both educators and this one, were designed before we adopted those standards. However, we always try to be self-reflective when we get multiple variances regarding the same thing. So Robin and I are currently working on an alternative compliance section to add to the architectural guidelines to essentially keep the base standards that we have, but like our landscaping or our parking allowances, which have that alternative compliance allowance, call out some other ways that they could kind of meet the spirit of good architecture while not meeting the exact regulations. So that would be things like architecture that is notable in a way that we could expect the building itself, not the underlying use, to bring in tourism. So that'd be like, kind of the common example would be like a Frank Lloyd Wright style building where people are showing up to look at the building itself.
Educators building, I see, is one that's architecturally significant. I thought that was a beautiful building.
Yeah, we want to make that nuance because you might think it's a beautiful building, but that's like a subjective thing. And we're trying to keep objective standards in the architecture. So educators, in the way that we're looking at it, could have used the alternative compliance section, but they would have had to add in other things. So other things include, like, if you're going after LEED certification, the amenities that you'd include in that site to meet LEED certification would grant you some variance from the architectural guidelines. Or if you're including things from like the park and open space plan or the bike plan at no cost to the village and just incorporating them into your design, we would give you credit for that type of stuff. So really just trying to, grant that either or flexibility that we have in the code where we're setting base standards, but then allowing people who want to bring in a creative project like educators to seek that. So that's a big staff note, and that would apply to this application if we had it adopted, and we think there are some avenues. We're still looking at the final of what that's going to look like, but in the next couple months, we'll try to have that in front of you to, clarify some of these issues.
A big reason for the why there is that the variance process, according to state law, is designed around hardship, or that there is no particular use or something about the land itself or the code itself renders something improbable or infeasible. When it comes to sort of aesthetic standards, there's no really kind of hardship that prevents you from having a roof slope of this or a roof slope of that. It just doesn't work. Is if you want to go, now our Board of Zoning Appeals still sometimes grants those kind of variances, but it's not designed for those. So having an avenue for alternative compliance is a way to get them away out of the variance kind of category where they don't belong and don't fit, and into something that allows flexibility for them and improved outcomes for us.
When we rewrote the zoning code, we talked about the idea of it was to hopefully eliminate the need for the variance, as many variances as we were granting then. Mm-hmm. And of course, the code, now that we're using it like crazy in all sorts of different applications, we're finding out you know, where some of
Well,
those holes are.
yeah, I'm concerned because I don't think the Board of Appeals should even be taking this up, period. Because they should have proven a hardship in order to even have it be reviewed.
That's, if
You know.
someone pays us, we can't not grant it to them.
Well,
But
I
like
understand
Board
it,
of
but-
Appeals.
But we've got a
has to hear
3-foot
their
parapet
case.
for a reason of to hide all of the, the rooftop vents and air conditioning units and all that. And to just take that away now and say, well, what are they gonna do? If they put up some kind of a pitched wall where you can't see this stuff, but what you're opening this up to is just a wide open warehouse rooftop. And that's why we built the parapet into the zoning,
Yeah.
into the rules.
I think we completely agree. I mean,
point.
if you ever retire from the Plan Commission, Joe, we'd welcome you on the Board of Appeals with that attitude because,
I was there, that's where I came from.
well, if
years
you
ago.
ever want to come back, it's, it's tough. So we think there's better ways to do it, and we'll be back with one of those better ways.
Is the zoning board of appeals going to have a similar synopsis like we have here? Okay.
And in that case, like, we are the bad guys because we as staff, said this doesn't meet the zoning code. And so, it's truly up to the Board of Appeals, but our recommendation is for denial because we don't think as Robin said, it's really hard to meet the standard for a variance, but ultimately that's up to the Board of Appeals. So the applicant will have to make their argument later tonight in a public hearing setting, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and we would still proceed, like, if that were to be denied, we would still proceed this route because we believe that the ordinance should be changed to allow flexibility this way, and they could go through that process when that gets incorporated.
Yeah, again, if they had an alternate way to hide, if you will, those utilities on top of a building that isn't a 3-foot parapet all the way around, I get that, but if some kind of a shape or something that would hide it versus all the way around parapet.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to you with a change, but for the meantime, just 2 conditions. Everything else on this looks good. No real issues with it.
'Cause when I look at this, the elevations that we do have, what I see is their definition of the existing parapets that they've drawn in is more a design element, and it looks nice. It's a contemporary, it's kind of a modern day look, and so it looks nice, but I see then in the one set of buildings that, because it's the lower parapet, as you're looking at the buildings, that's what you are seeing, are all of those mechanicals and so forth.
Well, and
So
on
it's an
top of that,
interesting
there's a variety of building materials included within the project. So the school portion is, a block building, so adding parapets to that, a little bit easier. But the gymnasium is like an architectural metal panel, so adding parapets to that is more of a structural issue that you need to solve from an architecture standpoint, on top of just adding them, right? So it's, there is some nuance there. That's why we think, like,
Yeah.
there's better ways to do this, and we just want to acknowledge that.
Well, I'm just glad to see the school has the ability to add on right away and go through their phasing plan. I really like the way they drew. This is not a school that has that has the public buses, so I like the way they have the parking lot designed and the drive-through designed. It's not gonna have a lot of traffic on Chicory. It's gonna keep all of it onto its campus. And so anyway, I'm very happy for them. I think it's great.
All right, if there's no further questions,
Gotta find my page. There's my instructions on what to say. I lost my page.
page 5.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 3551 Chicory Road Site Plan Review SP 24-5.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions or concerns? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next will be 8626 Gittings Road, final plat, SFP 24-1.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is for settlement at Hoods Creek, edition number 4. The applicant applied to plat 10 new lots within the existing subdivision. The plat includes a new cul-de-sac named Keelbach Court and an extension of Hoods Creek Path. The applicant designed the existing stormwater ponds within the subdivision's addition number 3 to also serve addition number 4. And the civil plans were included as part of your file, and you can see that these were kind of designed and approved from our Public Works Department together. Just the platting process itself is going through multiple phases. We have a couple of conditions for approval. We need to see the final deed restrictions as part of our file. The development agreement is required. And also there are a couple lots, including 101, 102, 105, 107, that are right at the edge of the 120-foot lot width maximum. There's a couple ways they can solve for that. One would be to, move some of the lot lines a couple feet east or west to balance that out, or they can apply for an administrative adjustment for those lots to increase the width by up to 15%. Most of those lots are corner lots and around the kind of entry to the bulb of the cul-de-sac, so they're odd-shaped lots to begin with. We don't really have an issue with that, and the administrative adjustment should be able to solve for that if that's the route they decide to go. In terms of the rest of the subdivision requirements, everything else is met. Public Works has approved the submitted plans already. In terms of a fiscal note, the estimated new development value is about $7.5 million when it all said and done. The homes out there are generally about somewhere between $500,000 and $900,000, so we averaged it at about $700,000 a home, times 10, $7 million bucks. Plus the land value, you're about $7.5 million. That gets you to a revenue to cost ratio about 3.8 to 1, a private to public ratio about 15 to 1, and an estimated taxable value per acre about $1.3 million an acre. So with those conditions, we recommend approval. Pretty simple subdivision plat.
Oh, I was thinking that there could be another kind of thing that they could get a RE designation because these lots are of the size that they could get that designation, but that comes with other requirements. So that's just one further kind of thing. Because they're all like 2/3 of an acre, and between 100 and 120 feet, that's a RE designation. Could be.
They would take care of that in their in their laws of any animals being on the property.
Correct.
So, yeah,
Okay.
easy enough.
And-
Just a note, Jeff put in the large water main extension back here, so that's why these additions we're able to approve them now, is we are finally free from the Caledonia water limitation from the city of Racine, which is nice. So this is hopefully not the last addition to the subdivision that you'll see in the next few years.
Well, Jeff has done a hero's job of getting that water main over there, so that.
Some creative
many men
problem
have-
solving for sure.
Many men have tried, and Jeff prevailed, so that was quite a task. And this is non-TID, so the minute the houses are built, comes onto the tax roll, beautiful thing. So I would make a motion to approve the settlement at Hoods Creek Edition number 4.
Second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? Jeff, any words of wisdom you would like? No? Okay. All right, then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Go Jeff. All right, next, I guess, Robin, you have any report? Or Sam, do you have any reports while you're there?
I do not. Robin has the quarterly.
All right, your time's up next. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for that concise report, Robin.
All right, I just got up here. Okay, so we're just gonna go over about, some municipal complaints and our staff permit approvals. Kind of a light month. We expect us to go into full municipal complaint season as the weather gets warmer, the grass grows taller, and grows taller, and grows taller. So just a light one for these particular ones. We have another complaint for 2734 Eaton Lane, but that's currently being handled by the village attorney.
Yeah.
And not a whole lot we can do until that process plays out, which is a long one. But it's not like any of the previous efforts have worked. So those are the completed ones. These are the active ones. Another one on Eaton Lane, as well as some other ones as far as the Airline Road, Warwick Way is an incomplete house that pulled a building permit over a year ago and hasn't finished. We haven't really kind of found out what's the deal with that, but we're looking into it. Completed planning permits. There's a lot. Your zoning compliance permits are your business change. I mean, that encompasses a lot, and we should probably break these down, but it encompasses tenant change, like chicken coops, a Class B home occupation, and a shed that doesn't need a building permit. All of those are zoning compliance permits. And then
So a shed that doesn't need a permit needs a permit. Basically what I'm hearing you say.
Correct. So it doesn't need a permit for like the base or the footing. It doesn't have a slab, but it does need a permit for where it's placed on the property. So we're just checking to see you're not putting it in your front yard and that you know the rules based on that. It's a very inexpensive permit. It's only $50.
And do you go by the construction structure of that snow load, or does that not even come into this?
I mean, no, that's on building. I think it's the size and just whether it needs a, foundation or not. So I would say most of those pre-built ones, those vinyl resin sheds that you can buy at Menards or whatever, those don't require a permit, but from building, but they do from us to make sure you're placing them in the correct place. As well as a certificate of occupancy. The appeals of administrative decisions is not actually, it's our application, like that's handled in our zone, but that's not for us, that's for Public Works, just to clarify. That always sticks out like a sore thumb to me. So, and then site plan reviews of any site plan that's under 5,000 square feet or is administratively reviewed by the community development director. These are the active planning permits that are currently being reviewed, as well as what we are just heard, as well as something that's coming up tonight. That's all. The certificate of occupancies are something that requires the collaboration of multiple departments. Most of the hangups are fire. Fire getting out and doing an inspection, or if the applicant themselves have to complete something, it just goes into a holding pattern and then it sits here until we kind of close it out because it's been too long, or they actually complete the process. Any questions on any of that? Awesome. We're going to the National Planning Conference, but before the time you next see us, it's in Minneapolis this year, which is right close to home, and all three of us are going, and we're gonna take the train up there. So it'll be pretty cool. Probably literally, because it's Minneapolis in early April. So. But we're looking forward to bringing lots of things back for us to chew on and for y'all to chew on. So, I mean, obviously you're not hurting in new ideas and talking about codes and different ways of doing things. So we look forward to that.
Learn a lot, bring back good ideas. Are we up for any awards this year?
Unfortunately, no, I didn't submit for national. Maybe I should have, but no. That's really, really difficult. We did get an award at sort of from one of the national organizations, the small town and regional APA member, but because we didn't get first place there, I don't think we like go on to the next level, the playoffs, as it were. It's still an honor to be recognized. So
Absolutely.
Good job.
yeah.
Robin, one question. With all the zoning rewrites and all the improvement that you're doing, have you guys presented any paper at any of these conferences? Have you shared, instead of bringing it back, have you shared your good practice with the other one? Because I haven't heard anything like that in the last few years, so I was just curious.
Oh, well, Sam and I and your esteemed Planning Commission chair presented at the Green Bay Conference.
You did?
Yeah, like
Last
2 years
year?
ago. 2 years ago?
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Oh, I must have missed that.
Yeah, I have the video somewhere. I can dig it up of our presentation.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good to know, because I'm a believer in, like you said, that you go there and you learn about the best practices, but also you share about the best practices.
Yeah, and because of
So I'm glad to hear that.
Because of that presentation, I think that directly led into the 2023 award by APA Wisconsin of best practices, because a lot of people had seen that presentation, they were familiar with it, and I also included it as a part of the awards packet, so anybody who judged it could have seen that presentation.
Sound good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Robin.
All right.
Next, George.
All right, I'm up here before 2 o'clock, which is not the norm for me. So I'm just going to cover a few things since the beginning of the year. I think this is going to be kind of the new practice, unless I have items that you guys need to have further discussion on. So you'll see me up here every 3 months, kind of providing a update for what has taken place. First thing I want to cover is our park permitting. So that opened on January 10th. We did that this year at the Parks and Rec building instead of here at Village Hall. We had about 10 people out at 8 a.m. Waiting for the doors to be unlocked just to get their family picnics or company parties going. Ultimately, we're about 7 to 8 rentals ahead of where we were at this point this year, which is roughly like 15% up. So people are getting them in a little bit sooner. We've got a couple of larger permits that we've already taken care of for this summer. Relay for Life will be out at Campus Park, along with the pickleball tournament, the Smolinski Beer Garden, and then there's 2 to 3 other events and larger gatherings that I've been working with that haven't been finalized or anything, so I won't share any details on that. But so things are moving along great as far as permitting. Our Parks and Rec building itself, since the beginning of the year, we're averaging 1 outside rental per week, not including the weekly card group that's out there. So, roughly two out of the 7 days we have outside people coming in and utilizing the building. So that's well ahead of last year's pace as well. The phone calls have been reduced from last year because I've got a lot of people who have used the new system from last year and are just submitting the requests without a phone call. So it's actually helped me out a lot, because when you call the park permit line, it goes right to me. So that's been really nice this year compared to last. So in addition, we've started our program registration for the summer. With, again, looking at last year's number compared to this year, we had 205 registrations in 2023. We're up to 280 already thus far. So do the math on what it increased. People are getting their stuff again. They didn't have to worry about creating their household again. They've already done that this year. They can just go in, register, and be on their way. So It's nice to see, we get emails every time somebody registers, and my phone just dings, dings, dings. I think it's my normal email. It's just the alert saying that people are registering. So we're very pleased with those numbers thus far.
That's great to hear.
This past weekend, we hosted our annual Cottontail Trail. By far our best turnout that we've had. We were busting at the seams for the first hour of the event. Last year's event, I had about half of the little prizes that we give out I took back for this year. We were scurrying trying to find additional prizes throughout this event within the first hour. So we added a couple of additional games. We were again throughout the village hall. We had a lot of younger volunteers, including my daughter and her friends. We had them scurry into a back room and start stuffing more egg hunt bags because we were starting to run out of what we had pre-packaged. So, that's a good problem to have, and it's nice to have your kids old enough to be able to help with this kinds of stuff. So,
George?
yep.
May I ask, what do you attribute the continued growth of that event? In other words, I know, in the last couple of years, I've seen it on Facebook a lot, and it's getting shared and shared and shared and shared. Is it just promotion, the success of the event, people enjoy it? But that's great to see that kind of growth.
I think it's word of mouth more than anything. I wouldn't say we did anything more from a marketing standpoint than we've done in the past. We advertised it about a month prior, so we didn't do anything crazy of like taking out print ads or, we did a paid boost to make it show up as a sponsored post on Facebook, but we had garnered a little bit more interest as when you mark on there or like going to the event, so we had a little bit idea of what we were going to have ahead of time. But the nice thing with this particular event is with nothing bookending it, you can come, do your thing, and leave. So it's kind of the crowd continues. We probably have more than what we actually had at the when you look at it, whereas like the tree lighting, people stay for the whole event, waiting for the conclusion. So, we did it a little bit earlier this year too, so it might have just been timing. I think a lot of people came out, they saw the downtown St. Patrick's Day parade, so they came, did our event. You heard, you could see they had their shamrocks and different things, so you knew where they were going afterwards. So, but I will also note that I did talk to Officer Newman down at the cop house, and he said he had a fantastic turnout for his event as well. So, like I said, maybe it was just timing this year.
We don't have any snow, so people aren't going skiing. They don't have any outside things to do.
Yeah, and with my history doing this similar type of event, we stopped doing it outdoors and moved it to a high school because you never know what you're going to get with this particular event. So a great, huge egg hunt at the Gray Lawn out at campus would be fantastic. Would have probably not been able to happen this past Saturday because of how windy it was. So we're always looking to do little tweaks here and there, but I think people know what they're going to get now, and so you have those repeat people, and then it's just a few extra friends from there. So
very good.
A couple of additional updates. We just sent out our award for our mowing contract for the parks for the next 3 years. 2 out of the 4 proposals that we did receive were actually under what we paid previously, which is great news for us. So that can be a little bit attributed to Public Works took over some outlots that weren't actually parkland that were in the previous agreement. So we removed a couple of those. So I think the average mowing per park didn't really change significantly, which was good. We were anticipating an increase since this is 3 years later, but everything was pretty comparable to what we had before. So we're very pleased with that. We took care of ordering our new parks pickup, so that should be delivered here in the next month or two. Sorry, just double checking the rest of my notes. Working on the RFP for master planning for the 4 parks that were part of the capital projects for this year. That RFP should go out here in the next month. I'm waiting on a report from a certified playground safety inspector who's going to show us where all of our playground structures are and as far as it needs of repair, so we can take care of those things leading into the summer. And then that also will set us up for our replacement plans for capital for the next 5 to 10 years. Which structures are going to need full replacements? What can we continue to Band-Aid by replacing brackets and some other functions? So came out and surveyed 9 different parks, and I should have that. He thought the report would be this week, but if not, next. So, and then just some of the other things that I've been working on. Potential ordinance updates, working through staff manuals and procedural manuals for anybody to utilize the new system and any of the different procedures that we've been putting in place lately. Our seasonal staffs who were here last year are all returning, so that saves a lot for worry on my end. And then we had a replaced part of the bridge on one of the playground structures out at Stewart McBride, so that should be replaced here in the next month as well. So we've been busy, to say the least. So that's about a 10-minute update for 3 months of work, but yeah, that's what's going on in the Parks and Rec Department.
Any plans on anything happening on the band shell yet?
I know tourism was working on something related to the concert series, so I've been working with Matt Prohaska on how we can coordinate with that. We are going through our catalog for movies in the park this summer, so Brittany and I are working on that. But yeah.
Who'd you get to replace Glenn? Did you get a full-time person or not, or are you?
Yes, yeah. Okay. So that didn't change. So we shifted over Josh Pekarski, who he had worked previously for Kenosha County, or City of Kenosha Parks, doing there. So he had already had the background in parks. So he was actually able to shadow Glenn for like the last 6 weeks, and we have not lost Glenn's number. So he has offered to come back for some of the more integral things, like the startup of the bathrooms at Stewart McBride and Smolinski. So that's one other thing that I've been working on. We took all these handwritten notes, so we're putting it into actual Word documents with photos now, and so that, set and forget it, bring on anybody, they should be able to follow this stuff instead of having to just use what's up here from everybody. So yeah, again, we started from scratch in a lot of different areas, and we're still just not even, I couldn't even tell you what percentage, but we're not on the better half of 50 yet, that's for sure. So,
Well, good job, though.
George?
Yes.
Would the campus park be 100% open this year, and is there any grand opening planned?
So Sam and I have met previously about this, so we're just coordinating with Maureen and again with tourism on kind of what we want to do. So nothing has still yet been solidified, but we are targeting something for this summer. As far as what is going to be open, in looking at this spring, since it's actually been pretty nice out, we got out there, we're probably still going to hold off on permitting anything out in the cricket area. I met with some cricket representatives. We walked the field. We still have some additional areas that we want to see additional growth, so we may still have signs up that say, tread lightly, please be mindful of the new grass, that type of thing. But I mean, we're planning on doing all of our softball leagues out there, t-ball for the summer. So yeah, it should be popping over there.
Gonna be busy. That's awesome.
George, I had a chance to walk over there last meeting, actually after the last meeting. It's really impressive. There was a lot of people playing pickleball and stuff. And, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's very, very nice.
Yeah, and so we're still got our signage and different things that are going to be going up this year out there. So kind of tell people maps of the facility, so when they come into the various entrances, they know, okay, this is where this is at in the park. So yeah, we continue to get very positive feedback. So we'll take it.
Well, it'll get better as we go along, when that grass fills in and everything else.
Yeah.
But it's a very nice park.
Right.
It's impressive.
we still have some patience, you know, we've got to be a little bit patient with some of it, you know, droughts don't help, that's for sure. So, hopefully we got a really good spring here, you know, it looks like I've already seen some growth starting to sprout, in various places for some of those perennials, so, yeah, fingers crossed, right?
George, what do you do out on the Pike River path as far as Parks and Rec? Are you guys in charge of signage and things like that, or is that kind of its own animal?
So I put out the safety markers, so that was part of our project. So those ones that go every quarter mile. I did the design of the maps that are out at each of the things with the mileage. So I took care of that. We put out the bicycle repair stations.
What are we doing about signage for animals? Obviously, I live right there, and so there are people now parking at the lift station, which of course I'm thrilled with, because they open their car doors and they let their dogs out. And we have dogs, and so their dogs end up at my house. Or as they go up the bike trail, they let them loose, and they're running all over the park, or the Pike River. But now there's sandhill cranes nesting in there. You know, I guess I'm kind of conflicted about this bike path, because certainly the bikers are not the ones that are abusing it, but there's other places to walk your dog where you can go off leash. Was the intent of that pathway for those people with dogs to be able to run them free without leash?
So I think before you came on the commission, we redid the ordinance for dogs. So dogs are required to be on leash, and it is, you can issue a citation for them. So one thing that can happen is if you are crossing one way and they're going the other, you see their dog is off leash, you don't want to confront that individual. You can call and use one of those markers that are on the trail and indicate at this point they were heading north at marker 23, and by the time a cop gets there, they may be on their path north and meet them at a certain spot and catch them with their dog off leash. So it's a way that you can actually submit things without having to deal with confrontation, and they can be issued a citation for that. So we did address the fact that they are only allowed on leash on the trails.
So I think what we need to do is follow that up with some signage at the parking areas and the entry, the trailheads, because that's not being adhered to. And there's nothing telling them that that's the rule. And as they come up from from Petrified Springs, they're right on Green Bay Road, and they have them on leash, you know, but it's like they get to the KR trailhead going north and they're free.
Yeah, and part of the reason we hadn't done that yet either too is because we've continued to have all of that construction. I've had a sign sitting for 3 years that we haven't put up for the Pike River pathway. I've had the map sign that hasn't been put up yet because every time there's been something that's been either getting dug up or, so that is in part why that section hasn't. Okay. I can look at the maps too and see, or even the stands, because I know between the legs we could probably put some additional signage underneath those maps, because those are at each, so there's one at the Braun Road parking, there's one at Oaks, there's one at Old Spring, and then there's one actually around the basin by Case High School. So we do have 4 signs that we could add to, even on the backside too.
Not to cut off discussion, but I think we're getting a little off track. This quarterly update. So if you have any specific questions about what George presented, please ask them. Otherwise, you know, you can always give George a call in your off time to talk to him.
Sam. Thank you, Sam.
I recommend strategic.
On that happy note, motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion second to adjourn. Any questions, comments? Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.